Last night, I dreamt I went to Mandalay again. Mandalay, secretive and silent. Time could not mar the perfect symmetry of those walls. We can never go back to Mandalay again. But sometimes, in my dreams, I do go back to the strange days of my life, which began for me in the south of France. No, stop!
What the devil are you shouting about? Well, what are you doing here?
I was only walking.
Well, get on with your walking. Don't hang about here screaming.
Hi, it's Max de Winter. How do you do? I'm Edith Van Hopper. It's so nice to run into you here. Mr. De Winter's having some coffee with me. Go and ask the stupid waiter for another cup.
I'm afraid I must contradict you. You shall both have coffee with me. Garçon, give me some coffee, please.
Cigarette?
No, thank you.
Tea.
What do you think of Monte Carlo? Or don't you think of it at all?
Oh, well, I think it's rather artificial.
She's spoiled, Mr. De Winter. That's her trouble. Most girls will give their eyes for a chance to see more. Perhaps you could make yourself useful to Mr. De Winter if he wants anything done. You're a capable child in many ways.
That's a charming suggestion, but I'm afraid I cling to the old motto. He travels fastest who travels alone. Perhaps you've not heard of it. Good night.
I remember when I was younger, there was a well-known writer who used to dart down the back way whenever he saw me coming. I suppose he was in love with me and wasn't quite sure of himself. Well, c'est la vie. Don't think that I mean to be unkind, but you were just a teeny-weeny bit forward with Mr. De Winter. After all, I am responsible for your behavior here. Perhaps you didn't notice it. Poor thing. I suppose he just can't get over his wife's death. They say he simply adored her.
Mademoiselle will have lunch with me.
Oh, but I couldn't possibly.
Why not?
Oh, well, please don't be polite. It's very kind of you, but I'll be all right if they just change the cloth.
I wasn't being polite. I should have asked you to have lunch with me, even if we hadn't upset the vase so clumsily. Come along.
Oh, I'll just have some scrambled eggs.
Oui, mademoiselle. What's happened to your friend?
Oh, she's ill in bed with a cold.
Tell me, is Mrs. Van Hopper a friend of yours or just a relation?
No, she's my employer. I'm what is known as a paid companion.
I didn't know companionship could be bought. Haven't you any family?
No, my mother died years and years ago, and then there was only my father, and he died last summer.
What was he?
A painter.
Ah, was he a good one?
Well, I thought so, but people didn't understand him. He painted trees. At least it was one tree.
You mean he painted the same tree over and over again?
Yes, you see, he had a theory that if you should find one perfect thing or place or person, you should stick to it.
You've taken long enough for that sketch. I shall expect a really fine work of art.
Oh, no, don't look at it. It's not nearly good enough.
Oh, dear. Tell me, is it the perspective that gives my nose that curious twist in the middle?
Well, you're not a very easy subject to sketch. Your expression keeps changing all the time.
Does it? Rather reminds me of our coastline at home. Do you know Cornwall at all?
Yes, I went there once with my father on holiday. I was in a shop once, and I saw a postcard with a beautiful house on it right by the sea. And I asked whose house it was, and the old lady said, "That's Mandalay." I felt ashamed for not knowing.
And Mandalay is beautiful. To me, it's just the place where I was born. I've lived in all my life. Now, I don't suppose I shall ever see it again.
The water's so warm here that I could stay in all day. There's a dangerous undertow, and there's a man drowned here last year. I never have any fear of drowning, have you?
Come, I'll take you home.
Oh, yes. I know Mr. De Winter well. I knew his wife, too. Before she married, she was the beautiful Rebecca Hildreth, you know. She was drowned, poor dear, while she was sailing near Mandalay. He never talks about it, of course, but he's a broken man. She was the beautiful Rebecca Hildreth, you know. They say he simply adored her. She was the beautiful Rebecca Hildreth, you know. But he's a broken man.
Off duty?
Oh, yes, Mrs. Van Hopper's cold's turned into flu, so she's got a trained nurse.
I'm sorry for the nurse. You keen on tennis?
No, not particularly.
That's good. We'll go for a drive.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Van Hopper. How are you feeling?
That pro must have been teaching you other things than tennis. Wonder if Mr. De Winter is still in the hotel.
May I go now?
For the number of lessons you've had, you ought to be ready for Wimbledon. But this will be your last, so make the most of it.
Yes, Mrs. Van Hopper.
Nurse,
Yes, Miss Van Hopper?
are you absolutely sure you left those messages for Mr. De Winter?
Why, yes, madame.
I simply can't believe it. He would most certainly have called me back. Oh, well, poor boy. I simply hate to see him so alone.
And what particular moment in your young life would you want to keep?
Oh, all of them. All these last few days. I feel as though I'd collected a whole shelf full of bottles.
Sometimes, you know, those little bottles contain demons that have a way of popping out at you just as you're trying most desperately to forget.
Would you please tell me, Mr. De Winter, why you asked me to come out with you? Oh, it's obvious that you want to be kind, but why do you choose me for your charity?
I asked you to come out with me because I wanted your company. You've blotted out the past for me more than all the bright lights of Monte Carlo. Please don't call me Mr. De Winter. I've a very impressive array of first names. George Fortescue Maximilian. But you needn't bother with them all at once. My family call me Maxim. Please promise me never to wear black satin or pearls. Or to be 36 years old.
Yes, Maxim.
For the love of Pete, come here. What do you think? My daughter's engaged to be married.
Oh, really? How nice.
We must leave for New York at once. Get reservations on the Aquitania, and we'll take the 12:30 train for Cherbourg.
Mr. De Winter, please. Oh, he's gone out riding. He won't be back till noon. Oh. Well, give me the porter, please.
Hello. What are you doing here? Anything the matter?
I've come to say goodbye. We're going away.
Which would you prefer? New York or Mandalay?
You mean you want a secretary or something?
I'm asking you to marry me, you little fool.
Oh, but you don't understand. It's that well, I'm not the sort of person men marry.
I'll remind you of this one day. You won't believe me. It's a pity you have to grow up. Who's going to break the news to Mrs. Van Hopper? Shall you or shall I?
Oh, you tell it. She'll be so angry.
Mr. De Winter says, please, for you to come up to his room.
Mr. De Winter? Why, certainly. I'm so glad you called me, Mr. De Winter.
I asked you up here in order to tell you of my engagement.
You don't mean it. Oh, how perfectly wonderful. How romantic. Who is the lucky lady?
I apologize for depriving you of your companion in this abrupt way.
What am I thinking of? I shall give you both my congratulations and my blessings. I'm very happy for you both. Tell me, have you been doing anything you shouldn't?
I don't know what you mean.
Oh, well, never mind.
You better leave, Mrs. Van Hopper. You'll miss your train.
Mrs. De Winter. Goodbye, my dear, and good luck.
Oh, Max, are lovely.
Welcome home, Mr. De Winter.
Thank you, Smith. Hello. Starting to rain. Better hurry up. That's it. That's Mandalay. Here we are, Fritz. Everybody well?
Yes, thank you, sir. We're glad to see you home, sir.
This is Mrs. De Winter, Fritz.
How do you do?
Oh, I didn't expect the whole staff to be in attendance.
Mr. Danvers' orders, sir.
This is Mrs. Danvers.
How do you do? I have everything in readiness for you.
That's very good of you. I didn't expect anything. Oh, Maxim, come in. Oh, good evening, Mrs. Danvers.
Good evening, madam. I hope you approve the new decoration of these rooms, madam.
Oh, I didn't know it'd been changed. I hope you haven't been to too much trouble.
I only followed out Mr. De Winter's instructions. I came here when the first Mrs. De Winter was a bride.
I think I'll go downstairs now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You're Mrs. De Winter, aren't you?
Yes.
My name's Crawley. I manage the estate for Maxim. Awfully glad to meet you.
Mr. De Winter informed me that his sister, Mrs. Lacey, and Major Lacey are expected for luncheon. I'd like to know if you approve of the menu.
Let's have whatever you think that Mrs. De Winter would have ordered.
Thank you, madam.
How are you, Frith?
Good morning, Mrs. Lacey.
Where's Mr. De Winter?
I believe he went down to the farm with Mr. Crawley.
How tiresome of him not to be here when we arrive, and how typical.
I wonder how she likes it now, being ordered about by an ex-chorus girl.
Now, where on earth did you get the idea she's an ex-chorus girl?
He picked her up in the south of France, didn't he?
What if he did?
Well, I mean to say, there you are.
How do you do? I'm Maxim's wife.
How do you do? Well, I must say you're quite different from what I expected.
Oh, but Cecilia, she's exactly what I told you she'd be. Well, how do you like Mandela?
Very beautiful.
And how do you get along with Mrs. Danvers?
You mean she scares you? She's not exactly an oil painting, is she?
I didn't mean to say anything against Mrs. Danvers.
See, she's bound to be insanely jealous at first. And she must resent you bitterly. She simply adored Rebecca.
Don't sail, do you?
No, I don't.
Thank goodness for that. Huh? Well, goodbye, Maxim, old boy.
Goodbye, Giles. Thanks for coming, old boy.
Goodbye, my dear.
Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you very much.
And I must congratulate you upon the way Maxim looks. We were very worried about him this time last year. But then, of course, you know the whole story.
Where does that lead to?
Oh, it leads to a little cove where we used to keep a boat.
Oh, let's go down there.
Well, no, it's a perfectly dull, uninteresting stretch of sand, just like any other.
Oh, please.
Well, all right, we'll walk down and take a look if you really want to.
Jasper, there must be something wrong. Perhaps he's hurt himself.
No, he's all right. Leave him alone.
Don't you think I'd better go and see?
Don't bother about him, I tell you. He can't come to any harm. He'll find his own way back.
Jasper! Oh, there you are. Oh.
I wasn't doing nothing. I was just putting my shells away. She's gone in the sea, ain't she? She'll never come back no more.
No, she'll never come back. Please wait for me. Maxim, what is it? You look so angry.
You know I didn't want you to go there, but you deliberately went.
Why not? There was only a cottage down there and a strange man who was...
You didn't go into the cottage, did you?
Yes, the door.
Well, don't go there again, do you hear?
Why not?
Because I hate the place, and if you had my memories, you wouldn't go there or talk about it or even think about it.
What's the matter? Oh, I'm sorry, please. I made you unhappy. Somehow I've hurt you. Oh, I can't bear to see you like this. Because I love you so much.
Come. We'll go home and have some tea and forget all about it.
I was down at the cottage on the beach the other day. There was a man there, a queer sort of person. Jasper kept barking at him.
Oh, yeah. Must have been Ben. Excuse me. He's quite harmless.
Are those all Rebecca's things down there?
Yes. Yes, they are.
What did she use the cottage for?
The boat used to be moored near there.
What boat? What happened to it? Was that the boat she was sailing in when she was drowned?
Yes.
Wasn't she afraid to go out like that alone?
She wasn't afraid of anything.
Before we end this conversation, would you answer just one more question? Tell me, what was Rebecca really like?
I suppose she was the most beautiful creature I ever saw.
Yes, Frith, what is it?
Excuse me, sir. May I have a word with you?
Yes, what is it?
It appears that Mrs. Danvers has accused Robert of stealing a valuable ornament from the morning room. Robert denies the accusation most emphatically, sir.
What was the thing, anyway?
China Cupid, sir.
Maxim, I wanted to tell you, but, well, I forgot. I broke the China Cupid.
You broke it? Now, why on earth didn't you say something about it when Frith was here? It was all a mistake, Mrs. Danvers. Apparently, Mrs. De Winter broke the Cupid herself and forgot to say anything about it. What did you do with the pieces?
Well, I put them at the back of one of the drawers in the writing desk.
Well, it looks as though Mrs. De Winter were afraid you were going to put her in prison, doesn't it, Mrs. Danvers? I wonder if I did a very selfish thing in marrying you.
How do you mean?
I'm not much of a companion to you, am I? You don't get much fun, do you? You ought to have married a boy. Someone of your own age.
Maxim, why do you say this? Of course we're companions. Our marriage is a success, isn't it? A great success? We're happy, aren't we? Terribly happy.
Pardon me, madam. Is there anything I can do for you?
Yes, I'm all right, Hilda. Thank you very much.
Looking for me? Oh, I didn't make you jump, did I?
No, of course not. I didn't quite know who it was.
Oh, what about presenting me to the bride?
This is Mr. Favell, madam.
How do you do?
How do you do? Oh, and by the way, it would be very decent of you if you didn't mention this little visit to your revered husband. He doesn't exactly approve of me.
Very well.
That's very sporting of you. Oh, and I know what was wrong with that introduction. Danny didn't tell you, did she? I'm Rebecca's favorite cousin.
Wish anything, madam? Lovely room, isn't it? Loveliest room you've ever seen. Everything is kept just as Mrs. De Winter liked it. While she was undressing, she'd tell me about the party she'd been to. She knew everyone that mattered. Everyone loved her. And then she would say, "Good night, Danny," and step into her bed. Sometimes when I walk along the corridor, I fancy I hear her just behind me. That quick, light step. Do you think the dead come back and watch the living? Sometimes. I wonder if she doesn't come back here to Manderley. Watch you and Mr. De Winter together.
Tell Mrs. Danvers I wish to see her immediately.
You sent for me, madam?
Yes, Mrs. Danvers. I want you to get rid of all these things.
These are Mrs. De Winter's things.
I am Mrs. De Winter now.
Maxim, you were gone all day.
Choking.
Oh.
Well. What have you been doing with yourself?
Oh, I've been thinking.
Oh, what did you want to do that for?
Oh, come in here and I'll tell you. Darling, could we have a costume ball just as you used to?
All right, if you think you'd enjoy it. You better get Mrs. Danvers to help you, hadn't you?
No, I don't need Mrs. Danvers to help me. I can do it myself.
Oh, all right, my sweet.
Oh, thank you, darling. Thank you. Come in.
Robert found these sketches in the library, madam. Did you intend throwing them away?
Yes, Mrs. Danvers, I did. They were just some ideas I was sketching for my costume for the ball.
Hasn't Mr. De Winter suggested anything?
No, I want to surprise him.
You might find a costume among the family portraits that would suit you.
Oh, you mean those at the top of the stairs? I'll go and look at them.
I've heard Mr. De Winter say that this is his favorite of all the paintings. It's Lady Caroline De Winter, one of his ancestors.
Oh, well, that's a splendid idea, Mrs. Danvers. I'm very grateful.
Everything under control, Frith?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Excuse me, sir. Are you supposed to be a schoolmaster?
Oh, no. This is just my old cap and gown.
Oh.
What's the idea, Adam and Eve?
Oh, Maxim, don't be disgusting.
Strong man, old man.
Oh.
Where's my weight thing?
What thing?
You haven't left in the car, have you?
Oh. Oh, there it is.
You were the first one down?
Yes.
Where's the child?
Well, she's keeping her costume a terrific secret. Wouldn't even let me into her room.
Oh, lovely.
All right. You look ever so beautiful.
Well, here goes. Good evening, Mr. De Winter.
What the devil do you think you're doing?
What is it? What have I done?
Don't take it off. Doesn't matter what you put on. Anything will do. What are you standing there for? Didn't you hear what I said?
You knew it. You knew that she wore it, and yet you deliberately suggested I wear it. Why do you hate me? What have I done to you that you should ever hate me so?
You tried to take her place.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
You thought you could be Mrs. De Winter, live in her house, walk in her steps, take the things that were hers, but she's too strong for you. You can't fight her. No one ever got the better of her. Never, never.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. Oh, stop it.
You're overwrought, madam. I've opened a window for you. A little air will do you good. Why don't you go? He doesn't love you. He wants to be alone again with her.
Ship aground, sending up rockets. Maxim! Ship ashore! Come on, everybody!
Oh!
She won't come back, will she? You said so.
Who, Ben? What do you mean? Oh, Frank, have you seen Maxim anywhere?
Not since about half an hour ago. I thought he'd gone up to the house.
Frank, what's the matter? Is anything wrong?
The diver who went down to inspect the bottom of the ship came across the hull of another boat. A little sailboat. It's Rebecca's.
Hello.
Maxim!
You love me very much, don't you? But it's too late, my darling.
Maxim, what are you trying to tell me?
Rebecca has won.
What are you saying?
They sent a diver down. He found another boat. The diver made another discovery. He broke one of the ports and looked into the cabin. There was a body in there. It's Rebecca's body lying there on the cabin floor.
How did you know, Maxim?
Because I put it there.
How could we be close when I knew you were always thinking of Rebecca? How could I even ask you to love me when I knew you loved Rebecca still?
You thought I loved Rebecca? You thought that? I hated her. She was incapable of love, or tenderness, or decency.
You didn't love her. You didn't love her.
I'll make a bargain with you, she said. You'd look rather foolish trying to divorce me now after 4 days of marriage. So I'll play the part of a devoted wife, mistress of your precious Mandalay. I'll make it the most famous showplace in England, if you like. You despise me, don't you? As I despise myself. You can't understand what my feelings were. Can you?
Of course I can, darling. Of course I can.
One night, when I found that she'd come back quietly from London, I thought that Favell was with her. But she was alone. She was expecting Favell, but he hadn't come. She was lying on the divan, a large tray of cigarette stubs beside her. She looked ill, queer. She was face to face with me. One hand in her pocket, the other holding a cigarette. She was smiling. She stood staring at me, smiling. Suddenly she stumbled and fell. I remember wondering why she was still smiling. And I realized she was dead.
But you didn't kill her. It was an accident.
Who would believe me? I lost my head. I just knew I had to do something. Anything. I carried her out to the boat. It was very dark. There was no moon. I saw the boat heel over and sink. You can understand now what I meant. I've loved you, my darling. I shall always love you. But I've known all along that Rebecca would win in the end.
No, no. She hasn't won. No matter what happens now, she hasn't won. What's happened?
Colonel Julian called. He's the chief constable of the county. He's been asked by the police to go to the mortuary. He wanted to know if I could possibly have made a mistake. Well, Colonel Julian, apparently I did make a mistake about that other body.
The mistake was quite natural under the circumstances. Besides, you weren't well at the time.
That's nonsense. I was perfectly well.
Oh, don't let it worry you, Maxim. Nobody can blame you for making a mistake.
I want to go to the inquest with you. I must be near you so that no matter what happens, we won't be separated for a moment.
It's gone. In a few hours. You've grown so much older.
Maxim.
Hello, wait a minute. They've got old balmy Ben up now. You remember the late Mrs. De Winter, don't you?
She's gone.
Yes, we know that.
She went in the sea. The sea got her.
Whether you were on the shore that last night she went sailing.
I didn't see nothing. I don't want to go to the asylum.
You may go now. Now, Mr. Tabb.
Yes, sir.
Step forward, please.
She give his call to me the truth, the whole truth, but the truth, sir. I often said Mrs. De Winter was a born sailor.
Now, when Mrs. De Winter went below, as is supposed, and a sudden gust of wind came down, that would be enough to capsize the boat, wouldn't it?
Excuse me, sir, but there's a little more to it than that. The seacocks are the valves to drain out the boat. And they're always kept tight closed when you're afloat. Today, when I examined that boat, I found they'd been open. That's what flooded the boat and sunk her. Couldn't have been no accident. Not with her knowledge of boats.
Mr. De Winter, please. Well, since Mrs. De Winter went sailing alone, are we to believe that she drove those holes herself?
Well, you may believe what you like.
Mr. De Winter, were relations between you and the late Mrs. De Winter perfectly happy?
I won't stand this any longer, and you might as well know now. My wife, she's faint. If you hadn't fainted like that, I'd have really lost my temper.
Darling, please be careful.
Hello. And how does the bride find herself today?
One fellow.
Oh, hello, Max. Things are going pretty well for you, huh? Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you mind if I put this there? You know, Max, old boy, I really think I ought to talk things over with you. You know, boy, I have a strong feeling that before the day is out, somebody's going to make use of that rather expressive, though somewhat old-fashioned term, foul play. You've only got to read this note to understand. It's from Rebecca. And what's more, she had the foresight to put a date on it. She wrote it to me the day she died, so I didn't get it until the next day.
And what makes you think that note would interest me?
Oh, I'm not going to bother you with the contents now, but I can assure you that it is not the note of a woman who intends to drown herself that same night.
Hello, Favell. You looking for me, Maxim? Yes. Mr. Favell and I have a little business transaction on hand. I think we had better conduct it over at the inn. Find Colonel Julian. Tell him I want to see him immediately. Have you a private room, please?
Of course, sir. Through there, sir.
Oh, splendid. Splendid. Exactly like the Ritz.
Very good, sir.
Where's Mr. De Winter?
Through the other door, sir.
Colonel Julian, this is Mr. Favell.
I only want to see justice done, Colonel. Now, that boat builder's evidence suggested certain possible theories concerning Rebecca's death. Now, I have a little note here which I consider puts that possibility quite out of court.
Jack, darling, I've just seen the doctor, and I'm going down to Mandalay right away. I have something terribly important to tell you. Rebecca.
Now, does that look like the note of a woman who had made up her mind to kill herself? As an officer of the law, don't you feel there are some slight grounds for suspicion?
Of murder?
What else?
Him. Be careful, Favell. You brought an accusation of murder. Have you any witnesses?
I do have a witness.
Oh.
And if my guess is right, Crawley, there's a bit of malice in your soul toward me, isn't there? Crawley didn't have much success with Rebecca. And the bride will be grateful for your fraternal arm, Crawley. Every time she faints, in fact. De Winter!
Maxim, please.
That temper of yours will do you in yet, Max.
Surely, Colonel Julian, you're not going to allow this fellow to...
My opinion of Favell is no higher than yours, Crawley. But in my official capacity, I have no alternative but to pursue his accusation.
Ah, here she is, the missing link, the witness who will help supply the motive. Danny, who was Rebecca's doctor?
Mr. De Winter always had Dr. McLean from the village.
Now, you heard. I said Rebecca's doctor in London. Now, listen to me, Danny. We know that Rebecca went to a doctor in London on the last day of her life. Who was it?
I don't know.
Mrs. Danvers. It has been suggested that Mrs. De Winter was deliberately murdered.
The name of the murderer. George Fortescue Maximilian De Winter.
It was a doctor.
Danny, what was his name?
Dr. Baker, 165 Gold Hook Road, Shepherd's Bush.
There's where you'll find your motive. Go and question Dr. Baker. He'll tell you why Rebecca went to him, to confirm the fact that she was going to have a child. Toodaloo, Max. Come along, Danny. Let's leave the unhappy couple to spend their last moments together alone.
Dr. Baker, you may have seen Mr. De Winter's name in the papers recently. We're trying to discover certain facts concerning the late Mrs. De Winter's activities on the day of her death.
I'm awfully sorry. I'm afraid I can't help you. I should have remembered the name De Winter. I've never attended a Mrs. De Winter in my life. No. No De Winter.
Are you sure?
Well, here are all the appointments for that day. Ross, Campbell, Stedall, Perino, Danvers,
Danny! What did she look like? Can you remember?
Yes, I remember her quite well. She was a very beautiful woman. Tall, dark, exquisitely dressed.
Rebecca. What was the matter with her? She was going to have a kid, wasn't she? Come on, out with it.
You want to know if I can suggest any motive as to why Mrs. De Winter should have taken her life? Yes, I think I can. I sent her to a well-known specialist for an examination and x-rays. And on this date, she returned to me for his report.
What was wrong with her?
Cancer. There was nothing that could be done for her except wait. Your wife was a wonderful woman, Mr. De Winter. And oh, yes, I remember she said something that struck me as being very peculiar at the time. When I told her it was a matter of months, she said, "Oh, no, Doctor, not that long."
Thank heaven we know the truth. Dreadful thing. Dreadful. A young and lovely woman like that. No wonder I never had the remotest idea. Neither did Danny, I'm sure. Hello, Danny. I just wanted to tell you the news. Rebecca held out on both of us. She had cancer. Yes, suicide.
Is something worrying you, Maxim? I can't get over the feeling something's wrong. Frank.
What's the matter? Why did we stop?
What's the time?
Well, this clock's wrong. It must be 3 or 4. What?
That's Mandalay.
Are you all right, darling?
Oh, yes.
Are you all right?
Mrs. Danvers. She's gone mad.